In the last days, prior to his final coming, Jesus tells us that there would be great earthquakes in diverse places, and famines and pestilences. Now, many of us can see the various famines taking place, especially in the Eastern Third World countries, where many are suffering and dying for want of food. Many of us recognize there are earthquakes all over the world taking place now at an alarming rate. But what about the pestilences? For those who are not aware, the term pestilence can be defined as any epidemic disease with a high death rate, or a pernicious and malign influence that is hard to get rid of. And no doubt AIDS can fall under this category, even cancer, as we see more and more people suffering and dying from this lethal disease. But in this video, I want to draw your attention to another pestilence that is plaguing Western society. A pestilence some even describe as being worse than cancer. And that pestilence is Morgellons. Now the chances are most of you have never heard of this disease. I hadn't until a few months ago when I came into contact with someone suffering from this disease. And at first, it was difficult for me to get my head around or understand its implications until I did further research. And after conducting my own research, I was horrified to find that there are in fact thousands and thousands of individuals suffering terribly from this disease. And the reason why the majority of you have never heard of it is because the powers that be in this world don't want to know about it, as those who have contracted this disease are often described as being delusional and are treated with cognitive behavioral therapy, antidepressants, antipsychotic drugs, and counseling. And the reason why many may ignorantly treat sufferers as so is because the symptoms of those who suffer from this disease sound like it comes right out of a sci-fi movie.
It feels like stabbing pain, stinging. After having never had any health problems before, I've been treated like I'm a hypochondriac, like delusional.
They've been to doctor after doctor seeking help. Instead of getting it, they've been called crazy.
They would like to put us in a mental health center.
Leanne turned to the internet hoping to find help for her family.
And that's where I found that message board of the Morgellons.
And it seemed to fit.
Mm-hmm.
She found countless others experiencing the same misery, a brain fog of sorts, problems concentrating, the feeling of bugs crawling on and biting the skin, and painful itchy sores that produce mysterious red and blue fibers and black specks. Some have even reported finding parasites in their sores.
Another name for the bugs that people see first are springtails. I gathered all the information and ran to it with the doctors who refused to even look at it. This is what people are pulling out of themselves, and the doctors are telling them that they're crazy.
And unfortunately, many of this population has really been treated very poorly.
Dr. Randy Wymore is the volunteer research director for the Morgellons Foundation. He says Morgellons is not widely recognized by the medical community. In fact, many patients presenting the symptoms are diagnosed with delusional parasitosis.
Many physicians, as soon as they hear red and blue fibers growing out of the skin, they think, well, that's impossible, this must be delusional.
At first, he was skeptical too. Hoping to end the mystery, he decided to take a closer look.
It didn't take very long until I began to think that something might be going on here. We feel that there is evidence that something unusual is going on with these individuals.
And Dr. Wymore says the fibers coming from their sores remain a mystery.
And I actually spent a fair bit of time this last summer collecting samples from 4 different states, from multiple different clothing retailers, used clothing, carpet, sporting goods clothing. I never found fibers that looked similar to these, and yet the ones coming from California and Texas and Washington and North Carolina, they all look very similar to one another.
Dr. Wymore and a small network of healthcare professionals across the U.S. are working to find ways to help these people, but they're limited.
To do the organized, systematic research is going to involve a lot of people and unfortunately have a fairly big price tag associated with it. It's just the reality of modern biomedical research.
The mystery of Morgellons soon caught the attention of a Tulsa, Oklahoma researcher, Dr. Randy Wymore. His research began here.
Here's a lovely red.
He wondered, could the fibers in the skin simply have rubbed off of people's clothing?
Here's a nice blue material that probably will have some loose fibers that can be pulled off with Scotch tape.
When you took all of these clothing fibers and put them underneath the microscope, did it look like the fibers underneath the skin of the Morgellons patients?
No, not at all. Totally different.
Satisfied the fibers weren't textiles, Dr. Wymore consulted with colleagues at Oklahoma State University.
I didn't know what to think at first. I, of course, did a little research.
I will admit that at first I was a little skeptical.
Doctors Rhonda Casey and Steve Eddy agreed to see Morgellons patients.
That is definitely not a hair, the blue thing there. I'm going to get that. I'd like forceps and a slide.
We were there one day when they brought in 4 patients,
I'm going to see if I can get the little purple looking thing.
extracted fibers from under their skin,
Oh, I got it.
made slides, and looked at them under a microscope.
Ooh, it's red.
Actually, it's red and blue.
And this is what they saw. Black, red, and blue fibers lurking under the skin. Now they've seen about 25 patients, and the OSU doctors are convinced Morgellons is real. They say they found most of the fibers away from the sores, under unbroken, smooth skin. Still, no matter who you believe, there was one question no one here could answer for us.
You've looked at these fibers under the microscope. What do you think they are?
Oh, I have absolutely no clue.
More than 5 years with this issue. And it spearheaded when I started becoming inflamed in between the eyes. It's almost like literally my pineal gland was inflamed. It was a big bump on in between my eyes that would get itchy and stuff like that. So about last year this time, I started poking at it and started, I had these weird little hairs, like thick hairs, starting to poke up through this inflammation. So as I was plucking them and getting deeper into what I call the rabbit hole in between my eyes, I noticed that different textures, different colors, mainly black fibers at that time, and real weird white fibers. Some will say it's collagen fibers. Some will say it's this. Anything but a Morgellon fiber. Go figure. So that's when I landed on this whole Morgellons epidemic, and I was so appalled at how people were getting treated and just the relevance. I mean, how people were getting called crazy for what they were talking about. People were actually ashamed and afraid to go to doctors because of how the doctors were making them feel, because the doctors didn't know what the hell was going on, because nobody's passed it down about what was really going on with this whole Morgellons epidemic. It's a huge cover-up. And I urge you, I'm not going to get into a preach about, what Morgellons is about. I urge you to do your own homework and come up to your own conclusion with what you feel about the Morgellons epidemic. Also know it's real. Cockamamie, this is real stuff here. Really high level technology. So find God. That's all I got to say. Find your almighty God.
I would just treat yourself for Morgellons. Get some garlic. Take some baking soda. They cannot live in an alkaline body. They can't. They can't survive in it. So I'm speaking of parasites. Morgellons, I'm not too sure, but I'm treating this as if it's parasites on steroids, even though Morgellons is totally different. And I don't know a lot of people that have cured themselves completely of Morgellons without it coming back because of the chemtrails, and my battery's low because of the chemtrails. But I tried eating this with pomegranates. At night, the thing that's in my stomach was reproducing like this. it felt like within a minute or two after eating it, when I laid down, all over my body, they were going all over my body, in my heart. It's like she was eating and producing at the same time. Eating and producing at the same time. Can't believe I'm able to talk about this. I wasn't able to talk about it before. I was this close to being in the loony bins. That close. It's crazy. It's crazy to feel these things throughout your body, and they come out of your skin. I have a whole bunch of bumps now, and they're very, very sore. That's them trying to come through.
I started getting sick, and it got worse and worse and worse. I guess I'll get into symptoms. So I had decreased energy at first, getting harder to focus and think, harder to sleep, just joint pains, sore body, everything. I ended up, stinging sensations from head to toe. It was very, very dense in my spinal cord, because they're neurotoxins, affect your nervous system and everything else. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I was so exhausted. I couldn't sleep. I was so uncomfortable. I couldn't sit down. I couldn't lay down. I couldn't stand. I couldn't. Anything I did, I was uncomfortable. It didn't matter. The light sensitive. I ended up, not able to work for a month and a half maybe. And it was bad, it was very bad. And eventually, my intestines were completely plugged. I realized I hadn't gone number 2 for several days or a week, and that just added to it. It got drastically worse quicker then, because, even if I put something good in, it's probably not digesting right. It's probably not being used right. It's just adding more to some form of blockage. It was pretty scary, So within, a week, I wasn't eating. Even when I was hungry, I couldn't. Where is it going? I'm putting more stress on something. I don't know what's happening inside there. Even drinking water, I was scared to drink water. The water wasn't even flowing through my system properly, and my stomach started getting bigger, just bloated. It just added to it, and everything got worse quick. And so to talk about miserable, I understand the misery that you are experiencing if you're watching this. I understand that everything hurt, everything was bad, and I couldn't sleep. I could not sleep. It got to by the end, it was so bad, I would pass out from exhaustion for 10 or 15 minutes, every, 4 or 6 hours, or, maybe 10, 20 minutes a day. Very minimal. And when I woke up, it was worse. It felt worse. I did not feel refreshed. I woke up miserable. I hated it. I wanted to die. I would never in my life commit suicide, ever. I was dealing with V2K. I would never, ever commit suicide, but I just wanted the pain to end.
Morgellons is a controversial and poorly understood condition in which unusual thread-like fibers appear under the skin. The patient may feel like something is crawling, biting, or stinging all over. Some medical experts say Morgellons is a physical illness. Others suggest it's a type of psychosis called delusional parasitosis, in which a person thinks parasites have infected their skin. The doctor may call it an unexplained dermopathy, which means a skin condition that occurs without a known reason. Other medical professionals have dubbed the condition fiber disease. Unpleasant symptoms of Morgellons: feeling like bugs are crawling all over the skin, burning or stinging sensations under the skin, intense itching, sores. I had Morgellons. I was diagnosed over 11 years ago. People here, you're like, how can this be? You know, you always have a smile on your face, but the torment and the agony that I went through every day and every night, I got to the point where I just stopped talking about it. I spent hundreds, thousands of dollars. Finally ended up at the Mayo Clinic probably about 11 years ago after it started. After about a year, some friends of mine helped me get to the Mayo Clinic. Spent 3 days there. Ended up in the psych ward, especially after I told them the only way I could sleep at night is I poured glue on my head, so I couldn't have to feel that. And when I lay my head on my pillow at night, I could hear there was always a noise in my ears, and there was lesions on my head. It started with one, and I ended up with like 10 or 12 of them that never healed, ever. And I just concluded that God was punishing me because I married out of the will of God, or this happened because my mom died, or, you know, I was angry. I didn't know. I looked at the people next to me, and I would think, how does it feel not to feel this? After a few years, I finally just gave up on doctors because they just look at you like, why are you doing this to yourself? I'm like, no, you're supposed to tell me why this is happening to me. I'm not, no, I don't have any answers. And everything I took into doctors are like, why are you doing this to yourself? I'm like, really? So I gave up on doctors. And so after I gave my life to the Lord, I just started praying and fasting and saying, God, please, you healed my back. It's done so much for me. Well, when me and Sylvia were here working here, it's funny, because if you're around me, you know, you see I had a routine. I mean, if my hair wasn't up or if I wasn't here at church, I was constantly ripping my hair out. At night, I would put super glue on the holes just so I could get some sleep, but the noise in the ears and the fibers and the stuff in my eyes, it was just torture. That's all I can say. But Sylvia said,
as you scan the comment sections of those suffering from this disease, you will see many, many people crying out for help as they describe the intense suffering they are going through. So why the reluctancy for the government to fully intervene and do something about it? Well, many believe it's because they are a part of the problem. When you investigate the root cause of this parasite infestation, many believe it's due to the chemtrails, heavy metals, alongside GM foods and electromagnetic waves through wireless signals such as Wi-Fi that lead to a breakdown of the body's immune system, which eventually lead to the creation of a super parasite bug that is resistant to the most powerful antibiotics in the medical field, as well as a lot of the natural remedies out there. Many have reported to be suffering from the Morgellons disease for years, 10 to 12 years to no avail, often being told there is no hope. But friends, there is hope. If it was not for Jesus Christ, for without Jesus we will be most miserable. It's a slow, agonizing process for many out there, but there is hope.
I thought, well, you know, my body, we all think our body's going to break like in a different way. We don't really expect for creatures to start coming out of our skin, but, you know, we get lucky, I guess, in a way that this happened. You'll hear my story and you'll see. There is hope. There is hope for you. I attacked this with everything I had. This is not, something that you can just take lightly. This is worse than cancer. This is worse than cancer. because it's not even glorified like cancer. You know, you get cancer this and cancer that, and oh, you tell somebody you've got cancer, and they're showing up at your doorstep with food and support and money, and oh, take your time off, and you know, oh, bless you, you've got cancer. Do they do that for Morgellons? No, they don't. They have no clue about Morgellons. Morgellons is the death. It's the death. It's the death. It is directly from the devil. I will tell you that. We will go into more detail on that. It's directly from the devil. And I'll tell you this. You will not survive Morgellons without Jesus Christ. You will not. You will not. If you don't know Jesus, you will know him. Because at one point, you're going to be like, I need Jesus. There's no other way. There's no other way.
Friends, we are in the spiritual warfare, a war between good and evil. In a book called The Great Controversy, a book written over a century ago, the author describes the final event to take place in this earth's history with great accuracy. On page 589 in this book, it is written, Satan works through the elements also to garner his harvest of unprepared souls. When it talks about elements, it's talking about nature, the weather, and so on. It continues. He has studied the secrets of the laboratories of nature, and he uses all his power to control the elements as far as God allowed. When he was suffered to afflict Job, how quickly flocks and herds, servant houses, children were swept away, one trouble succeeding another as in a moment. It is God that shields his creatures and hedges them in from the power of the destroyer. But the Christian world have shown contempt for the law of Jehovah, and the Lord will do just what he declared that he would. He will withdraw his blessings from the earth and remove his protecting care from those who are rebelling against his law and teaching and forcing others to do the same. Satan has control of all whom God does not especially guard. He will favor and prosper some in order to further his own designs, and he will bring trouble upon others and lead men to believe that it is God who is afflicting them. That's serious. So Satan will bring trouble on others, and many will think that it's actually God that's doing it. No different to Job. So we need to be careful when we are dealing with other people's maladies, how we approach them. We need to ask God for wisdom in these things. It continues. While appearing to the children of men as a great physician who can heal all their maladies, he will bring disease and disaster until populous cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. Even now he is at work in accidents and calamities by sea and by land, in great conflagrations, in fierce tornadoes and terrific hailstorms, in tempests, floods, cyclones, tidal waves and earthquakes. In every place and in 1,000 forms, Satan is exercising his power. He sweeps away the ripening harvest, and famine and distress follow. He imparts to the air a deadly taint, and thousands perish by the pestilence. Can this be chemtrails? He imparts to the air a deadly taint, and thousands perish by the pestilence. These visitations are to become more and more frequent and disastrous. Destruction will be upon both man and beast. Friends, we are truly in the last days. These are the signs. The wickedness in man is reaching such a height that it is only a matter of time before God allows those winds to be let loose, and there will be a trouble such as never before, and the Holy Spirit will be withdrawn from those who are constantly, continually to transgress the law of Jehovah.